G'day guys, welcome back to SuperCoach with DR and welcome to the round 15 stock market video. Firstly, hope you all had a ripper of a week. I saw some big scores out there, particularly in some of the leagues that I'm involved with. Lots of 2,500 pluses, so if you managed to hit the magical mark this week, congratulations. I'm sure that you would have seen a spike in your rankings. Secondly, you're probably wondering why I'm wearing a pair of sunnies. Simple answer is I lost a bet. I was playing a board game with my son Nash, and his request was for me to wear a pair of sunnies during the next YouTube video. An attempt to try to embarrass me, I think. So he's done an okay job at that, I suppose. I'm looking a little bit silly at the moment, but that is the simple reason for that. Congratulations, Nash. You've managed to embarrass your old man. And back to the footy. What's happened this week? Well, the major news is that Impey is now out. Many people would have already traded him out last week, but I'm still holding on to him and I'll be upgrading him to a fallen premium this week. Some of us, I know I'm in this position, still looking to bring Grundy back into the side. If you're someone that traded him out, you may be looking to fill that last midfield position. Do you go with someone like a Bont, Parish, where you need to spend the big bucks, or do you look for a little bit of value? We'll talk about all that in the video, so I suppose I'll leave it there for the introduction. Let's get straight into it. All the best for this week, and we'll start off with our 500k plus defenders. The man at the top of the list this week is Braden Maynard, 516,900. This bloke's looking to go up about 37k if he can go above a 110. Now, I've got the yin-yang symbol on him because he didn't set the world on fire to start off the season. Score of 106 in round 1. That's nice, we'll take that. Then followed up with 45, 81 and 49. So really struggled to hit that 20 possession mark, and we're wondering, well, what's really happened to this breakout player that we had in 2020? He then followed up with a 125, which was nice against West Coast, and then again, though, 59 and a 72. So there was no consistency in his game, but what we have seen over the last 3 weeks is that consistency return. 100, a 142 and a 121. So that 142 also came against Melbourne. Also had 4 free kicks against. So that certainly didn't help his score. But a 142 has shown us that he does still have that ceiling. Now, I'd be a little bit worried about that consistency. As we said, from round 1 up to round 15, he's given us a few nice scores. But then again, that floor is pretty low at times. So I don't know. I'd be passing on him personally and going for someone like a Whitfield, a Daniel Rich, similar at that price. But the 3-round average, well, that speaks for itself. It's only second to Rory Laird, who's an absolute must-have, who I've got there. I've got the badge there. So for me, I'm personally passing on him. I don't need defender as it is, but if I did, I wouldn't be going Maynard. But if you're looking for a pod, I can certainly see the attraction with the pick. Lachie Whitfield, he's clearly the best buy here. I think he's basically a must-have. If you don't have him, you're really, really missing out. And if you do need to upgrade one more defender, then please get this man in. I highly recommend him. He shouldn't let you down. Look, many of us brought him in round 13 where he only delivered a 74. But apart from that, a 110, a 120, a 126, a 116. This is a man that keeps running when his teammates stop. The 1-2s, great disposer of the ball, good decision maker, just does not stop running. So I've got lots of respect for this man. Maybe a slight concern is that wacky durability, just gets some weird injuries from time to time, but I'm willing to bank on the fact that he can hopefully hold out until the end of the season. And that average of, well, that 3-round average of 105, I think that can definitely hold or even get up to the 110 mark. So highly recommend Lachie Whitfield. If you don't have him, bring him into your side, I think. Now, if you're looking for the ultimate pod, big boy McAvoy has not gone under the ton in the last month. So 102, 116, another 116, and a 104. Look, you could go worse, I suppose. I think that the thing with our defensive lines this year is the fact that we've got too many safe options. You've got your Lairds, you've got your Mills, you've got your Whitfields, even your Rich, I think, is a really, really safe selection. Stewart let us down, the Seagull let us down over the weekend, but generally really solid SuperCoach selections. So that's probably what's putting me off getting in someone like a McAvoy. But this time of the year, if you are really looking to climb up the rankings, you've got to do something different at times. He does present a little bit of value around that 500 mark. All the other options here are dearer than that. So he is the cheapest option out of all the players on this screen. Arguably, though, probably the riskiest option at the same time. He does have DPP status, but it's pretty irrelevant because, well, who else have you got as a defensive ruck? I'm sure there are maybe a couple of players there, but you just won't use that DPP. So don't really take that into account if you're looking to select Benny McAvoy. But look, all in all, I think that I would pass him up personally. It's really team dependent. You know, he can hit the scoreboard. He is a decent forward, but yeah, he's not getting that full-time ruck, which may be playing into his hands. I'm not too sure, but for me, he's a pass. But if you're looking for an ultimate pod, yeah, bring the big man in. Richie, well, surely he's got to have claims to being the most consistent defender in 2021 so far. How's this? His lowest score was a 72 in round 1. And apart from that, his next lowest, 89, 90, and a 91. So, as a general rule of thumb, he will not deliver you a score below the 90 mark. His top score is a 138. Next is a 127 and a 123. So, at the same time, that ceiling isn't overly high, but what you can lock in with Daniel Rich is just, I'd say, a 105 average from here on out. He's just a really consistent performer week to week. He's got a great roll down back, takes the majority of the kick-ins. They look to get in his hands. He kicks it long, and usually he kicks it accurately. Chimes in for a sneaky goal here and there, although opposition teams are cluing onto that. I remember back in the early days, they just didn't see it coming with a young Daniel Rich. He's done it since day one. Go around the back for that handball and a long kick from 50 to 55. So I really recommend getting him into your side. He's not going to win your games each week, but he will really maintain your average and give you a nice score, I think. So Richie, I'm all for as a pick. Rory Laird, he's just a must-have. Not much else to say about him. We've all got him anyway, I think. Cal Mills, very close to being a must-have also. Well, he's one up on Laird for the season average, but I'm not as keen on him as I was probably 6 weeks ago. I want to say not as keen. Still love him as a pick. If you can get him in, absolutely go for it. But I thought he'd be above and beyond the rest of the defensive options that we've got. And he has come down to the pack a little bit. But fantastic option, Mills. Ryan, not as keen as I was again a couple of weeks ago. But a pod selection, I'm selecting Mills over Ryan though and saving 9k. Chris, been out of form a little bit. Wouldn't be selecting him at this stage. Real pod selection, though. And the Seagull and Stewart, talk about Daniel Rich being the most consistent defender in the game. These two blokes are probably number 2 and 3, in my opinion, anyway. If you look at the numbers, it probably suggests that. But both had really off weeks. The Seagull, we're not going to see too many more games like that. We haven't seen it since round 1 of 2020, so don't get used to scores in around the 70s. But Tom Stewart, I mentioned in my round review, really undisciplined act from him. Cameron got under his skin. I won't go over the whole incident again, but extremely disappointing from Tommy Stewart, and I wouldn't be expecting those types of scores. But if he does play a lockdown role, yeah, those 100 pluses are pretty much out of the question. So hopefully Chris Scott does the right thing by us and allows him to play his natural game this week. On to the defenders, 250 to 500k. Tommy Highmore, he's absolutely killing me. I thought I made the right move, traded him out just before that really, really low sub-score game. But then this man just bounces back with 100 plus and a 90 plus over the last couple of weeks. Man, I just didn't see it coming. So if you've held on to him, congratulations. He's now a really, really solid bench option to have. And I know that some people have even taken his score and benched one of their, I suppose, not tier 1 premiums, but you know, a Mayer short and taking this score over that. So, yeah, if you're doing that at the moment, it just goes to show how well this man is playing. The ship sailed, you can't bring him into your side, but there is absolutely no way that you trade him out. Hold on to him for the rest of the year as some really, really nice cover, I think. Now, Dougal, big Dougal, like really low kicking percentage over the weekend. Only had 2 himself, but he's looking to rise 60k if he can hit a projected score of a 113. Now, I doubt that. I really, really doubt that he's going to go around that score. 3 highs to 133, 126, and a 160. 2 of those high scores have come in the last 2 weeks. So round 13 against Adelaide pulled out a massive 160, and then last week against Richmond a 126. So do not look at this break even and think this is a bargain of the century. Scores before his 160, I'll read these out all in a row from round 9, 56, 87, 57, and 67. So don't think that you're going to get these massive scores. It's been a really nice couple of weeks, but I just don't see it continuing for the rest of the year. So I'd avoid Dougal Howard myself. Will Day, now if you're looking for a real pod and you don't have much cash in the bank, then this could be a bloke you could take a little bit of a risk on. Looked really, really good over the weekend. We know what he did in his first year. Really talented type player, really nice disposal on him. Not the biggest type of bloke, really slim sort of a frame, but what he does well is he uses the ball and he does make good decisions with the ball in hand. Now, given the fact that Impey's now out of the side, we're a little bit worried about Impey's role with Day coming in. Now, given the fact that Impey is out, as I just mentioned, that does give Will Day a lot more opportunity. So does he take on that role that Impey's been playing basically all year? I think there is a possibility. So if you're really looking to take a risk and you don't have much cash, this could be a bloke that you take a bit of a sneaky look at. Would I do it myself? Maybe, but I'd probably look at Nick Haynes, who we'll talk about in a minute. Cozzy, 259,000 now on the chopping block. He's been on the chopping block for weeks and weeks now. Just team dependent. Do what you want to do there. Blitzav's a real pod, isn't he? Almost 500k now. Been delivering some nice scores. 3-rounder of 108. So, again, I've been saying it for probably the last month as well. If you're looking for a real pod, you could bring him into your side. Plays a little bit of ruck, mid, back. He's the ultimate utility, isn't he, Blitzav? So I can't tell what's going to happen with him moving forward. Do they bring someone like a Ford or a Stanley in? I'm really not too sure with what Geelong are going to do in their ruck merry-go-round. It's been like that for years down there at Geelong. So I'm not really advocating the pick, but at the same time, you could get him in to go a little bit different and get away from the pack. Jake Lever's a pass for me. Really nice score on the weekend, which has got his break-even down all the way to 49. But personally, I just don't like the pick. He's a great interceptor, but I just think Stephen May is a lot more reliable than Jake Lever. Nick Haynes, now this is a man that is a really, really interesting selection. He's all of a sudden returned to his 2020 form. Now, when I say 2020 form, we know that he really tapered off towards the latter stages of the year, but before that, he was a really, really consistent and a breakout selection. So, given the fact he's back there in that role, his break-even's still at 50, there is still some value here. You know, you could have got him a couple of weeks ago. That would have been ideal. Last week, I think it was about the 350 mark from memory. I'm not too sure, but he still presents some really, really nice value, Nick Haynes. And in the current role that he's playing, I can certainly see him from now until the end of the season finishing in the top 10 defenders for average. I know it's a big call, but I think he's in the same bracket as some of those players like his Salem, certainly gone past a Doherty now. Even the Shorts, I think. May, he's playing a similar role to what he does. So, yeah, I don't mind the Nick Haynes selection whatsoever. If you're looking for a value buy, he's clearly the best buy, in my opinion, from this list this week. And Shannon Hearn, he's another one who also presents a little bit of value, but clearly not enough for me. I've got the Mr. Burns symbol on him there, the old man symbol. We know what he does well. That's kick the ball, kick it long. Had a nice 100 score over the weekend. 3-rounder now of 106 also, but at his age, I just don't trust his body with some of those soft tissue injuries, particularly given the fact that many teams now are running out of trades. We can't be affording to be bringing in players like Shannon Hearn with his history, I think. So Hearn is a pass for me, but Nick Haynes I really, really like. Will Day, possibly another cheap pod selection. Jordan Ridley, things are really looking up for this pick now, and I think that I can really recommend him as a buy now. I do have the caution symbol on him, however, because there is a slight chance that he may go back to more of that lockdown role that we have seen over the last 5 weeks from time to time. But from what we saw over the weekend, I am really, really gaining confidence. His highest kick-in rate in a while, intercept game returned, and he just seemed to have greater confidence. You know, he's backing his judgment, winning those one-on-ones, and really, really impacting. They are also looking to go through him a lot more now when distributing out of the defensive line. So I'm rapt to see him return to the form, well, not quite to the form that we saw earlier on in the year, but I think that he is tracking in the right direction anyway. So if you are looking for a defender around the 470k mark, Jordan Ridley is your man. The other bloke you could have a look at is Dan Houston. Christian Salem, he is a pod, but I'd probably be avoiding him. Maybe I haven't given him enough respect this year. 100 for the season average, which is just behind Ridley, so the second highest on this list, but I'd probably prefer Houston or Ridley ahead of him. Houston's had a bit of an up and down year, hasn't he? Some injury concerns, a change in role, defence, midfield. But all of a sudden, I think he's found a little bit more consistency. His body's looking okay. A 3-round average of 103, 18 disposals over the weekend, 7 tackles. Also hit the scoreboard, which was nice. So probably the man, aside from Jordan Ridley, who I would be looking to get into my side around this price range. Scrimshaw, 490,000. I just think you're overpaying for him. A massive pod and probably a risk that we don't have to take. Stephen May's the other one that I actually have the buy now symbol on. Surprising because about 3-4 weeks ago, I mentioned the fact that you could look to trade him out during the buys as he's one of those tier 2 type defenders. But over the last 3 weeks, he hasn't gone under the ton. His intercept game is spot on at the moment. Really damaging. A real brick wall in defence, takes the majority of the kick-ins. As we know, that's been the pattern all year. So there are a lot of things that I actually like about the Stephen May pick at the moment, and super happy that I didn't end up trading him out of the side. Jaden Short, well, I like May a lot better than Short at this stage. He can still deliver us some nice scores, Shorty. I've mentioned the same thing. I think I'm on repeat with Jaden Short selection. Daniel, I wouldn't look to bring him into my side. I'd much rather go on May, Houston, or Ridley. Cox, I think, is definitely on the chopping block. Look at that break-even, 94. Look, you may have already made the decision that you're going to keep him for the rest of the year. He's really nice cover. A defensive forward selection. You may have Briggs, even a Madden there. So, team dependent, but certainly if you are looking to upgrade him, this is the week to get rid of him because he's going to start to leak cash soon. More than capable, though, as we know, of an 80 to a 90 type score. And Sam Doherty, a change in role has led to his 3-round average really diminishing now. If I was a Sam Doherty owner and I had a luxury trade, I'd honestly be looking to get out of this pick at the moment. It was looking really nice at some stage. When he had that nice role in the defensive line, he was a distributor, getting a lot of the ball, using it well, but unfortunately, a change in role has not meant great things for Sam Doherty's SuperCoach potential. And the defenders under 250k, Kieran Briggs filled in for me over the weekend. Rap that he delivered me a 77. Unfortunately, I think for non-owners, the ship has sailed. If he scores 63 this week, if he plays, I think there are still concerns over Mumford's back. He'll rise about 45k, which is really, really handy. Also offers some DPP flexibility with James Madden. Walker, he's on the bubble from Freo. 3-rounder of, well, we say a 2-rounder when they're on the bubble, of 43, negative break-even of 17. You can bring him in if you need a defensive option, but not sure about his job security moving forward. We're not relying on him to make too much money anyway. Go for him if you want to. I don't know much about him, though. Nathan Murphy, I think you hold. Had a nice score over the weekend above a 70. Break-even is back down to a 29. So short-term, next 2 to 3 weeks, should go back up and rise to about 230, 240k, depending on what he actually scores. Madden, I think, plays for another couple of weeks before Froggy Lester comes back. At that point, I think that I'll look to trade him out in order to make my final upgrade. Maybe at the conclusion of this week, I may have to do it just in order to get Brody Grundy in. But he's been fantastic fill-in, and 51 over the weekend, it's not great, but it's better than a 0. And Trent Bianco, he's been a little bit disappointing over the last couple, but I'm keeping on to him. Got terrific DPP swing with someone like a Fife and a Rory Laird. I think he'll be the ultimate bench option if we're super, super desperate. And even though he's had a couple of poor weeks, I'm still expecting him to get games. On to the midfielders, 500k plus. Jai Simpkin, 18 out of 22 CBAs over the weekend, 30 touches and a goal. A really nice 5 to 6 game average now, and time to pay him a bit more respect. He could jump on, but no way I would personally. Benny Keys, a pod with a decent 3-rounder. Lockheed Neil, now what a frustrating pick this year. I started with him, traded him out to Ridley, which was a bit of a disaster in itself, but I'd be 100% recommending him this week if it wasn't for his shoulder concern. I've got no idea how he's pulled up, but given the year he's had, adding another injury concern to the list is probably enough to put me off the pick. If fit and firing, I think he's a top 3 to 5 mid, but he simply isn't firing on all cylinders. He could work out fine if his shoulder's nothing to worry about, but opposition teams, they'll surely target it, make life as difficult as possible for him. Even wait a week if you can. See how he goes and bring him in next week with a little bit more confidence if you want. Libba, new nickname is Jiffies, but probably pass on him. Nice CBA rate. Taranto pass. Brayshaw pass. Trav Boak, really happy with what he produced over the weekend. Copped a really hard tag, particularly in the first half. But as we saw a couple of weeks ago when he scored that 109, really broke through that, ran out the game well, and ended up delivering me one of his better scores of the season. So that is something that really did attract me to the Trav Boak pick. The fact that, unlike someone like a Sammy Walsh, who's still young, learning how to deal with that tag, the fact that Boakey can actually break through those at times. So well done, Boakey. I like him a lot better than a Brayshaw and, say, a Tim Taranto. Jared Lyons, super player, super season. Lockheed Neil's inclusion hasn't affected him. Even reduced percentage in CBAs has had limited effects. So a really safe premium selection, I think, who, unlike some other high-priced midfielders, will not have to ever worry about a tag. Coming up against his old mob in the Crows this week also, a potential VC option, expecting a big one from JL. Zerep, career high disposal count on the weekend, was given all the freedom in the world and delivered with a ripper 147. And this is why teams lock down on him, because without close attention, he has a ball in the string, can be extremely damaging. He can throw in a poor score from time to time, but he's generally pretty consistent. So I'd prefer to go up to Lions, but still an option to buy now. Titch, I'm regaining the faith now, slowly but surely. Look, he's had a great last month. Consistency has returned. Look, there is still some risk attached to this pick. He really does need to accumulate a lot of the ball to score. But as we know, this isn't much of a problem for Titch, the disposal pig. Does need to improve his contested possession rate. I've noticed that when that is down, that's when he really does struggle to score. Also had a pretty low CBA count on the weekend. Attended just over 50% of them. And he and Newcomb actually had an equal split with 15 apiece. So, as I said, I think that lower contested possession rate is a major factor for his fluctuation in scores. So if you can improve that a little bit, all in all, I think he'll be an okay selection. And Benny Cunnington, another big game from him over the weekend. And look, maybe I wrote him off a little bit too early because he's been in terrific form. Gone above 110 in 6 of his last 7 games. The other one being about a 60, I think. If looking for a risk versus reward pod with a decent ceiling, who's in good form, go for it. But I just couldn't do it myself with all the other options we've got available. The Man of Steel hasn't gone below 125 in the past month. He's in super form. You know what you get from him each week. That's contested ball, tackles, had 9 on the weekend, and 200% effort. Love him as a pick. Bring him in without hesitation. The Bond, champion data's love child, and a man that is destroying me each and every week. I'm just such a jealous non-owner. He's got one hand on the Brownlow, I think, one hand on the Premiership Cup. This could be a duster repeat for the Bont this year. Seems to even gain points for free kicks against, so not much more to say. We know what he's been doing and doesn't look like slowing down. Man, I wish I had him. Sam Walsh really hit back after a disappointing round 14 where he copped the hard tag. He's a dangerous player when given some freedom. I didn't watch the game, but he had a low CBA count with only 13 of 25, which is interesting to note. I think the main issue with Walsh is that he is going to cop a tag from here to there. He's still learning to deal with the attention. This will become easier with more experience to increase, core body strength. But we may have to be prepared for a below par score if someone plays really tight on him. Probably sits on the fringe of the top 8s from here on out, I think. Track doesn't really interest me, poor year Supercoach wise. Guthrie bounced back on the weekend, but far from a monster. I'd probably be avoiding him at the moment. Took, another 30-plus disposal game. One of my favourite players in the comp now, and he just works his butt off each week in a struggling team. I'd promote him to the captaincy next year. He's a real natural leader, loves the contests, does the dirty work each week, tackles. Actually reminds me a lot of Jack Steele in the way that he plays, so massive fan of Took Miller. Jack Mcrae, bit of a slow start to the game, but an 80-point second half delivered me a respectable captaincy score this week. And just on the Dogs, they basically went with a 4-man rotation in the middle. It was Bont, Libba, Mcrae, and Baz. That's it. But Jack Mcrae is basically a must-have. Jelly, slightly hampered by last week's ankle injury. Was he? Possibly. I'm not sure, but seemed to be still moving okay. Acceptable CBA count with 18. Not his highest disposal game, but a disappointing score in a week where traditionally he's gone big against his opponent. I wouldn't be trading him at his price now. I just don't think there's enough value and probably some queries on fitness, but no need to panic at the same time if you own him. Ollie Wines, been getting a heap of the pill, but just hasn't been using it overly well. I'd probably avoid it close to 600k. And Darcy Parish on a bit of a downwards trajectory score-wise with his lower scores in the last 6 weeks coming in the past fortnight. Mind you, very respectable with a 115 and a 121, but you certainly want more for his price tag. And something to note is that he's only had 13 kicks in each of his last 2. Still managed to get 37 disposals last week, but 24 of them were handballs. So still a great pick, but needs another monster score to actually keep his price. On to the most awkward price range in Supercoach, the midfielders, 250 to 500k. Now, why do I say the most awkward price rise? It's because these are where the big dogs are. We have 8 positions in our midfield, and these should be allocated to some of the best scoring players in the game. So when we're looking at players under 500k for one of these really prized positions, I'm just not a fan of it. But if you are looking for someone in this price range, we'll go through a couple of the options that you've got. Spuddy Dow is a spud, break even of 1. Still would not look to go anywhere near this fella. Pendles as that real pod selection. The good thing with Pendles is the fact that he has been spending all of his time in the midfield. We know that he played a little bit half back, a little bit half forward when he's dealing with some injury issues. But given the fact he's right back there in the middle, I think that he could be a decent selection at this price if you're looking to go there. Man, he was just, an absolute god when it came to Supercoach, and probably, in my opinion, sits just beneath Gary Ablett in the Supercoach Hall of Fame, Scott Pendlebury. Baz, again, if you're really, really strapped for cash, I haven't liked this selection all year. Had a really nice score over the weekend. Remember, though, all the way back in round 1, he produced a similar type score where he looked $1 million. People jumped on him and were really, really let down. But again, he's under 400k. If you're desperate, you could go there, but I'm not really recommending him as a pick. Jordan as well on the chopping block at 404k, but you could just leave him there for now. He's delivering, an 89 over 3 rounds. He's just a terrific bench option, but probably too expensive to hold for the rest of the year. I'll just look to upgrade him now if you can. Now, Adams, there's a few symbols in the notes section, isn't there? You've got the buy now, you've got the durability cross there, and the caution. So we know what Adams can produce when his body's right. He is one of those elite midfielders in the game. Seasons prior has produced some really nice averages, but what's the pattern? It's his durability. Just cannot stay on the park, Taylor Adams. So he'll be pretty cheap in Supercoach next year, I'm assuming. Could be a little bit of a bargain. Was it 3-4 years ago even, where he was available as a defender? He was great for us back then. Really didn't miss a game, I don't think, from memory that season. But the issue with him is the fact that, can you rely on him to actually stay in the park? Yeah, it's a bit of a gamble for me. But again, under 470k, you could go worse than Taylor Adams, but be prepared for him to win your games and then lose your games. If you're low on trades, I probably wouldn't go there. Chera is a pass, 1 foot in the door at Richmond already. Just don't like what I'm seeing from him at the moment. Again with Rowley, he's a pass at this stage, 3-round average of 67, break even 91. You're bringing him in just with a little bit of hope at this stage. Maybe a luxury M9 later on the season, but certainly not for now, Matty Rowell. I'd skip. Ward is a bit of a pod, 3-round average of 86, but again, you can get some better value, I think, than Cal Ward. Cripps, I think he's almost got to be on the chopping block, this fella, at the moment. If you've got a couple of spare trades up your sleeve, you're already upgraded, and he's sitting there at your M8. I hope he's in your M8 if he's in your side. I'd just be upgrading him because you'd much rather even have a James Jordan there than Paddy Cripps. So I'm advocating getting rid of him at this stage. And Tully, here's a trap. Set it from the start of the year. Looking to go down another 40k. Maybe in a couple of weeks you could jump on him similar to someone like a Matty Rao type. But yeah, for me, absolutely not with Tully. And the midfielders under 250k. This one will keep pretty short. It's Bramble versus Garcia in regards to the Bubble Boys this week. Easy decision. Get Lockie Bramble into your side. Job security moving forward, I think, is okay. They seem to like him down there at Hawthorn. They are playing the youth now. Got a few injuries there also. Negative break even of 39. I like Lockie Bramble. I think you get him into your side. Luke Edwards, really disappointing from him last week. Had a really low break even the week before. We knew that the West Coast Stars were returning to the side. So Luke Edwards, the ship has certainly sailed. Do not look to go anywhere near this pick. John Newcomb went up a little bit there, so up about 41k. You don't look to get him. Again, the ship has sailed. Hoping for 50s to 60s from him from now on. And Garcia, it's a pretty easy decision, as I said. You skip him and go Bramble. If you do need to bring a rookie into your side and downgrade, I'd probably even skip him and just get a DPP loop, to be quite honest. Not a fan of the Garcia pick. On to the rucks, same familiar story. Nettie Reeves up the top, still on the bubble. When is this man going to get a game? Probably not anytime soon with the form that Johnny Segler's in. Tracy, always get that one wrong. Ship sailed anyway, can't bring him into your side. Probably keep him if you have got him. Zach Smith, I think that you hold for one more week. And then if your plan's the same as my plan, trade him out for Brody Grundy. I think that'll be the ideal time. Sammy Draper is now a pass. Last week, I thought, look, we can take a look at this guy, see how he performs. Could be a really cheap pod to finish your rucks with if you have traded out someone like a Grundy, but absolutely not after watching him play on the weekend. Got a lot of talent, will be a super player. Spills reckons he'll be a better player than Luke Jackson in the long term. Big call there from Spills. We'll see how that one goes, but for me, Supercoach this year, Sammy Draper is not relevant. Thilthorpe on the chopping block if you want. Still provides really, really good cover, but depends on how your team's going with your trade situation. Flinney, I think it is now the time to chop him. Look, who do you go to? Probably a DPP player, a ruck forward, Jacob Edwards from North Melbourne I'd be looking at personally, but there's no one really else that will provide you good cover at a cheap price. If Reeves was playing, that'd be the obvious selection there, but I'd probably just be getting rid of him and bring in a loop option. Too expensive for mine just to have on the bench if you've got two premium selections there already. Goldie, Darcy, Hickey, Rob, Nick Nat have all got his pods. Now, if you're in a situation, now we know that Impey's gone down, for example, now, who we'll talk about a little bit later. You may be in a situation where you simply can't afford to get back up to a Grundy now if it's going to take you or cost you 2 to 3 trades. So realistically, you may have to look at another option. So you've got 4 blokes here that I'd be taking a look at if you're in that situation. So Darcy and Goldie both have an identical 3-round average of 114. Hickey's been super since basically round 1, 105 average, and Rob has a 3-round average of 107. Now, it sounds pretty funny when you look at that 3-rounder from Goldie, 520, and then Rob's 12k more, only got in a 3-rounder of 107, that I'd be saying that I'd be choosing Rob ahead of Goldie, but I think I would at this stage. I just think Rob is a more solid player. Goldie's been terrific, but with age, playing for North Melbourne, yeah, I'm just not a fan of the selection. Rob, remember, was injured. It was either earlier or middle stage of the season, and he's made a bit of a comeback, I think. So that average on the season, 95, isn't anything spectacular, but if you are looking for someone else other than Gawn or Grundy, I think that he's probably a man. Nick Nat you'd love to have, but 620k, I'd just go Grundy, as I've said most weeks. Max Gawn, obviously a must-have. You've just got to have him in your side. Ceiling has diminished a little bit there. Not really a captaincy option anymore. Maybe on the odd week, but yeah, that's been a little bit disappointing from Maxi. And Brody Grundy, still with a highish break-even of a 153. Certainly achievable from this man. I was really hoping that he went maybe a 105 to a 110 last week in order for that price to come down for me as a non-owner. Unfortunately, he looked terrific, hit the scoreboard a couple of times also. Yeah, I need to bring him in ASAP. So personally, I'm hoping for a low score this week if possible. Then I'll jump on him. But that projected score of 116, I think that's pretty realistic for Brody. Onto the forwards, 500k plus. The man up the top, Jay-Z, we've all got him. Safe as houses pick. I started with him. Many of us did. What a terrific selection he's been for us. Next man, Dane Zorko. I did mention last week in the stocky that if he gives me a 150 plus score, I'll take the Muppet symbol off him. I've done that now, and I've replaced it with a must-have. So I'm a forgiving type man. I don't hold grudges. And Dane, thank you very, very much. The great Dane, I'm going to call you now instead of Dane the Muppet. But in all honesty, look, since I've traded this bloke in, this is what he's given me. A 140, a 117, a 162, a 122, and then 174. Obviously, he's also given me a round where he gave me duck eggs, zilch, because he was suspended during a really, really tough buy round, mind you, as well. So extremely disappointing there. But if you take that Muppet act away and just look at that raw data, he's the in-form player in the competition at the moment, along with Marcus Bontempelli, I think. But that 3-round average, 153, wow, you know, and he's 650k, basically. This is Dane Zorko. Just amazing. I still can't get over it, but he's looking red hot at this stage. If I was the opposition team, I'd be tagging this man. I wouldn't even worry about Lockheed Neil with his sore shoulder at this stage. Zorko is the man that you want to shut down. So I was very, very close to having him as my vice-captain last week. Didn't go through all those plans, as you would have heard on my round review. But this week, I think that, again, he's a really tempting vice-captain option. Coming up against the Crows, he should dominate. I'm worried that possibly Benny Keys may play a role on him. Maybe look out for that one, because Keys knows Zorko really well, obviously being an ex-Lion. But aside from that, there's no real downside to this pick. If you're trading him in, the downside is that you really have to pay up for him. And when I say a must-have, do not go crazy to bring him into your side. But at the same time, he's really, really going to hurt you. If you've got a heap of spare cash in the bank and you can get up to him easily, then absolutely go for it. You're probably overpaying slightly. But, you know, in the last 3 weeks, a 162 and a 174, wow, you know, you're missing out on some huge, massive scores here. So, yeah, get him in if you can. I'm a really, really happy owner. Frustrated a couple of weeks ago, but all is forgiven with the Great Dane. And Big Charlie, now, I'm not sure what's going on with him injury-wise. I don't know if he's out this week, how long he's out for. I know that there is some sort of an issue with him, so I would be avoiding trading him in purely because of that injury risk. Look for someone else, I think, at this stage. Aaron Hall, so it's the first time this man has let me down all year since owning him. Really disappointing with a low score of 73. We just haven't seen this over the last couple of months, but what's the reason for these lower scores? Well, last week he still got to 100, but yeah, he just got there. I think it is, and I've already mentioned this in the last 2 to 3 weeks, the fact that opposition teams are paying a lot closer attention now to Hall. They understand that he is the man that you do need to shut down. He sets up so much of North's play. We've mentioned gets a 1-2s, gets a 1-2-3s, the real link-up man, the real attacker, and sets up so much for their play, particularly from the back half. So don't worry about your Simpkins and your Cunningtons. This is a man that you do want to stop. Now, over the weekend, Nick Holman paid really close attention to Hall and didn't allow him to get any of his run and carry game going. We've seen over the last 4 weeks, you know, well, we'll go through into round 10. 24 kicks, 25 kicks, 27 kicks, 22, and only 14 over the weekend. So that's basically been his low for the year, apart from that injury-affected game. So that is a slight concern moving forward. And look, it just wasn't his day. You know, North didn't have any kick-ins in the first quarter, which is really, really rare. He usually relies on some of those just to get his score going. In the second quarter even, has a shot for goal out in the full. We know we can do this at times, but that's a 16-point turnaround. So if he gets that goal, doesn't lose those 4 points, all of a sudden he's a lot closer to a 90 score, and another couple of clangers avoided, he's at the 100 again. So he still can get there because he gets so much of the ball, but we really do need to look ahead to his fixture coming up and try to predict. We don't know what's going to happen, but at least try to predict if these teams are going to try to lock down on him. Do they have a small forward that has a reputation for being that lockdown, you know, trying to stop that run and carry from a dangerous opposition defender? I'm not too sure. I'll need to look into it a little bit more, but I'm an owner. I'm still a really, really happy owner. I can't see him not finishing from here on out in the top 4 forwards. I just think he's been that consistent during the year, but yeah, as I said, a slight concern moving forward is the fact that teams may start to lock down on him a little bit more. And Shai Bolton just didn't seem like his usual self, almost like he was lacking confidence, which we haven't seen from Shai all year. Basically zero impact and just a really down game. And I think a big part of the reason why Richmond got so beat up, he's such an important player for the Tigers. And one thing he's really improved on is his consistency. So this was unexpected, you know, attended 6 CBAs, that disposal count was down, impact basically at the 0 level. My mother-in-law did mention to me, and I think I did say this on the Stocky last week, that he was spotted heading in for scans during the week. So did that have some sort of an impact? I think that may have, because he was obviously sore, or there was some sort of an issue with Shai. I don't know what it is. Nothing's been said publicly, but yeah, I think everyone that's watched him play during the year and watched him play over the weekend, you would have realised the same thing. He just lacked that spark, and I can't put my finger on the reason why. I'm just not sure. So I think that there is something going on with Shai at the moment, and I'd probably be avoiding him as a trading target until we get a little bit more information on him anyway. Onto the forwards, 250 to 500k. The man up the top, the package, did not deliver this week. Returned to sender. Look, he's still looking to rise about 50k if he can hit a projected score of 92. But we all knew this. Anyone that's been playing the game for a little while, or anyone that knows Jake Stringer as a player and his history of consistency would know that these things are a bit of a once-off in a blue moon type thing. What do you get in the weekend? Well, it was a sub sort of 90 score, wasn't it? Bit disappointing, but you had to expect that from the package. He's just not a consistent performer and someone that I would avoid. Look, he'd be one of those ultimate F7 type players that you could loop if he's got some early games and just pray and hope for one of these massive scores where you can bring that on field. But as an on-field option, consistency just isn't there, as I've mentioned. Durability is always going to be a little bit of a concern. We see the good Jake, and then we see more than often the pretty average type Jake, and at times the real ugly with the package. So didn't deliver this week. I'm returning that back to the sender. Miles Bergman, he's been a bit of a surprise packet over the last 3 weeks. 3-rounder of 84, so playing a really friendly role back there in the back line. Yeah, I think that job security is pretty rock solid at this stage, so I'd certainly be holding him. Really good bench option just to keep in case of emergency. CCJ, hold him in a couple of weeks. You could probably look to trade him out when he's starting to max out. Slight concern I've got is what happens when Tommy Lynch comes back into the side. Nanks due to return also. We know that Samson Ryan, he'll be out of the side. It's probably out of him and Chol. I'd be preferring CCJ for his forward craft over Chol. But in saying that, you've got Rewalt and Tommy Lynch down there. So not really sure what happens with the pick. I'm hoping just to keep on to him as a bit of a swing bench option for the rest of the year. But in a couple of weeks, he'll probably be right for the picking. Harry Jones, again, low break even, but if you need to upgrade, then you could get rid of him without any concerns, I think. Zoha, a real pod option, 3-round average of 101. I don't think we'll see too many massive scores from him, but certainly in form. If you're looking for a pod, wouldn't go there myself. Jordan DeGoey, NDHP, Trap, all the rest, low break even, but with low trades at the moment, I don't think you could bring a man like that. If you're really, really desperate for cash, you're looking to buy a raffle ticket, then yeah, possibly. Now, Isaac Smith, I probably haven't given him enough credit as a forward selection this year. Now, as 442,000, 84 average, 3-rounder of 99, I think that you could probably do worse than the Isaac Smith selection. Now, I don't love him due to his age, but he has been in form, season average of 84, a 3-rounder of 99. That's close to 3 figures. So at his price, I don't mind it. I don't mind it. But in saying that, you've got other players around that price point that I think have some more runs on the board, possibly a higher ceiling. Smith's been one of those players that's never been really Supercoach relevant. But I think at this stage, given the fact that we've got some other options like your Tomahawk, your Camerons from Geelong that have been real roller coaster type selections, I think that Smith will give you a little bit more consistency. So don't love it, but certainly a pod. Duray as well, 3-round average of 100, so 3 figures there. 56 for a break even. Do you go him or Smith? Maybe even Duray, I think, because you're saving, 30k there. Similar 3-round average. Smith's got him on the season there, but I think they'll be pretty similar in what they produce for the rest of the season. Rosie, again, one of these picks where he's a little bit up and down, been in pretty good form with that 3-round average. So look, if you compare Smith, Duray, Rosie, there's about, a 43k difference between the cheapest Rosie and the highest there in Smith. You're still getting a very similar 3-round average. So, yeah, with the top two, you're getting that DPP. Rosie, you're getting no DPP whatsoever, but he's one of those players that, again, does have a decent ceiling when he's on. Saw him kick 3 or 4 goals in a quarter a couple of weeks ago, so the talent's certainly there, but durability, always a little bit of a concern. Had that foot issue he's been managing for the majority of the season, I think. But, I don't love any of the 3 picks, really, but 3 blokes that you could at least have a look at. Zach Bailey, he's been in terrific form, but with other blokes like, young Dev Robinson there, I just don't know if we're going to see consistent scores. Season average of 86. I love this man, don't get me wrong, but at 473k, I probably think there are some better options. Dev Robinson, I'll just be holding at this stage. He's a terrific bench option. If you look if you need to make an upgrade, then you can go for it. But he won the Rising Star nomination over the weekend, which was really, really well deserved. A long time coming, I think, for Dev. Now entrenched himself in our best 22. I don't think there's much doubt about that. The main issue he's going to have is when Jared Berry comes back into the side. So that may be a slight concern for him, but possibly someone like a Coleman goes out of the side because the way that he's playing at the moment, he's a really important player for us. Really shut down Joel Selwood over the weekend, as well as getting some of his own ball. So, yeah, love the Dev Robinson pick, and I'd be holding him if you can, if you've got that luxury. Joey Danaher, yeah, hold or trade, whatever you want to do there, to be honest. Waitman, definitely on the chopping block. I should have that actually in the red, that break even of 71. It is in the green. It shouldn't be in the green there, as Poulter is the same as well. But I'm not going to go back and redo this one now. We've come too far. But yeah, with those two, Waitman and Poulter, get rid of them if you want. I'm looking to actually hold on to Poulter for the majority of the season. Well, for the rest of the season, as that swing option on my bench. I think that's going to be really handy cover. Pretty poor score over the weekend of a 51, but that's, I think, been his lowest for the season. But has he hit a wall? Hopefully not. I still think he gets a lot of games. And Toby Green, well, I've got the buy now, but the caution. I don't even need to explain why. He's got the talent. They've got a pretty good fixture for the rest of the season, GWS. But the concern there is the fact that I don't think he's going to change. There's high risk that he may miss a week through to suspension or just doing something silly. And that durability is always going to be a slight concern also. But if you're willing to take the risk, I think that Green could be worth it at that price. He's still sub 500. Didn't deliver us a great score over the weekend. I think at half time he was, what was he, in the 20s or the 30s? It was really low. I know that, but just had a massive third quarter. Did nothing again in the last quarter. So sometimes that's all these players need, is one really, really big quarter, and they can get you a sort of an 85 to 100 type score. So don't mind the Toby Green selection, but yeah, with low trades, there is a risk that he may miss a week. Buddy, think he's a trap. Durability, just too old now. Absolute superstar of the game. Hall of Famer, but just not this year in Supercoach, I think, for Buddy. Dusty, I do have the buy now symbol on him there. I think he has got some more consistency to his game now. So since round 9, scores of 121, 86, which has been his lowest, 95, 102, 110, and a 94. We've seen players like Haynes, Dale, Bolton types give us some really low scores over the last 3 weeks. So at least with Dusty, I think what you're getting is consistency. We know that he is a superstar of the game. He normally leaves his run to the finals until he really produces his best football, but he may not even get that opportunity this year the way things are going. So I'm expecting Dusty to really put the foot down on the pedal now, along with many of his teammates from the Tigers, and I expect to see him get to hopefully about 520 to 530k in the next 3 weeks. I'm expecting big things from Dusty, and many of us, I think most of us own him anyway, you'd all be hoping the same thing as I do. So given the fact that he has returned to, I suppose, a more consistent level now, low score of 86 over the last six weeks, I think he's probably one of the better buys that you can look to get around the price point. Kane Lambert, if you're looking for a real pod, he can produce some really nice games. He's 415,000, a similar price point to a couple of blokes I mentioned before, like your Isaac Smiths. Yeah, maybe you could go there. I just wouldn't have the guts to do it myself, though. Nick Haynes got the yin-yang there because the week before last, he went a 130 plus, looked $1 million. Last week, they were scoring the 60s. So, yeah, we've seen the highs and the lows from Nick Haynes. Again, our opposition team's going to put a little bit more time into him. Yeah, just didn't get the run and carry to his game that we are used to seeing from Nick Haynes. So, I'd probably be avoiding him. I know it's funny because the advice changes from week to week, but you see the game, you look at some scoring patterns, you try to work that out, you make predictions about what opposition teams are going to look to do. It's so hard, with these forward lines. You look at all these options, as I've just mentioned before, they've all delivered some stinkers over the last month. So when you're looking to trade in one of these blokes, it's so hard to give advice on them because the patterns change. There's many ups, there's many downs, and for different reasons. That's why it's so tough. You've just got to go with your gut sometimes, look at the upcoming fixtures, go with those blokes who you think either have runs on the board or the most consistent roles from week to week, and yeah, use that as a bit of a basis for who you bring in. Nick Hyman just talked about. So Aaron Norton, 377,700. Got an okay fixture coming up. One of those blokes that can give you a massive game, then can deliver you an absolute spud type of game with a 40-50 type score. Danger, I think, is by far the most obvious trade in. I'm bringing him in for Impey this week, 495,300. So under the 500k mark. I think he's been building from week to week, and I'm expecting him to finish from here on out in the top 3 forwards for me anyway. So I'm all over the Dangerfield selection. Buy him now at under 500k. Really easy trading, I think. Taron Thomas is a pass for me. A real gun. Lots of talent, but playing for North Melbourne, just be too inconsistent for mine. Wouldn't go near him. Still side bottom. He's actually returned to some form, so 3-round average of 172. Again, you're getting him under 500k, but if I've got the choice between Danger and Sidey, I'm going with Danger every day of the week. Tex, Mr. Burns, a little bit too old. Great season for him so far, but I'm not looking to trade him in. I trap Heaney. You know how I feel about him. Absolute trap. If you got trapped, do I feel sorry for you? Sort of, because I had a bit of FOMO after that really nice game. He was available at about 350k, but I was never a fan of him. I warned you many, many times over the last few years. So, bad luck if you got Heaney. Just a terrible selection, unfortunately. Cole Langford, so managed to hit the ton over the weekend, which was great for me. It may not be the disaster pick that I thought it was after last week. Really close to kicking a goal, intercepted right on the line, lost a few points there. I did mention in my round review also that Stringer burnt him on a couple of occasions when he could have just chipped it over. Langford could have had a set shot from 30 to 40 metres. So a couple of things didn't quite go his way. At halftime, wasn't looking great. But then this bloke just had a massive second half, particularly in the final quarter. I think it may have even been close to a 50-point quarter. He went that well. So had a real impact. Contested possessions. I was absolutely wrapped with the way that he finished the game. So Stringer in the side playing well is a little bit of a concern, but given the fact that he still managed to get 29 touches over the weekend, laid 6 tackles, which was nice. It was 7 the week before, even against Hawthorn. So hopefully we can still rely on him to give us points that way. I like the selection at this stage. So when I say I like it, would I much rather someone else like a Shai Bolton in my side? Yeah, well, without the concerns around Shai at the moment, short term, most certainly I would. But I don't think that he's going to be the worst F5 to F6 option from here on out. I think that he should at least give us a 85 to a 90 plus average from here, I think. Bailey Dale, so he gave owners absolute heart attacks last week with a score of a 50. Many people brought him in before the start of round 14, but I think people can relax a little bit more now if they own him. A 96 over the weekend, 17 kicks, 6 handballs, used it pretty well. Had a fair few kick-ins, so I think that this pick is okay. The main concern was over the fact that he was moved into the forward line, but I think that was circumstantial. I think when Norton went down. So Bailey Dale, if you've got him, disaster avoided, I think, for now. He's come back with a pretty nice score. Cameron, absolute roller coaster. Warned you about this. Had a 150 odd and then a couple of absolute duds. Brisbane just didn't give him anything over the weekend. Now, Rowan, this is a really interesting pick. If you've got Impey and you can afford to hold him for one more week, I would see how this man goes and then possibly look to trade him into your side. Look, even if you can't afford a Brody Grundy, again, if you're waiting a week, just see how he goes. He's really hard to trust and it's not a high recommendation, but if he can give us, just say, a 100 to 110 on the weekend, then he could be a realistic option to bring into your side. They're assuming he's going to go around an 80. He'll drop 37k. He'll be really cheap, Rowan. We know that he's got major durability issues, but the fact that he's actually gone into surgery now, recovered from that, that's a pretty good sign for me. So see how he goes, keep him on the watch list, and maybe a sneaky trading option in another week or two. And Tomahawk, break even, 168 now, similar to Cameron, and this is why I hate selecting key forwards. Absolute roller coaster. And we'll finish off with the forwards under 250k, and unfortunately, as you can see, we are not finishing off with a bang. Absolutely nothing to see here. Got Armady up the top with that DPP status, 222,100, but the ship, that certainly sailed there. You got Waterman. I traded him out a couple of weeks ago. Thought that was the wrong decision, but he did come back straight after that calf injury. Unfortunately, didn't deliver owners with a decent score. Break even now at 36, still in the green, but I don't think you're going to make much more there. I didn't think he'd even come back into the side. That was a bit of a surprise for me because Sammy Draper was back in, 2 metre Peter, so I thought he would have lost his spot, but it'll be interesting to see what happens with his job security going forward. And Archie Perkins, well, there's not a lot of meat on the bone here to trade out. Possibly I'd just be looking to keep him as a swingman for the rest of the year. He should be getting games. Job security is pretty rock solid there, so even though I've got the chopping block symbol on him, it's really team dependent. If I owned him, I'd probably, if you could, be looking to trade out some other players, because that DPP status for the rest of the year on your bench as an emergency is really, really handy. So, unfortunately, this week in the forwards, under 250k, nothing to see. So that's it for now, guys. All the best of luck for this week, and I'll see you soon in the next one. Cheers, bye.